Hi, everybody. My name is Kate Haley. I work with Glazer's Camera here in Seattle. I run all the events and workshops for the store, and I have been hosting these online events that we have been doing over the past almost month now. Just want to tell you a little bit about how Glazer's is operating right now. Glazer's is open and here for you for all your photography and video needs. The store is open for curbside pickup Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. And our website is open 24/7. So if you have purchases that you want or need to make, go to our website, glazerscamera.com, look around, see what you need, make that purchase online. And if you want to pick it up, like I said, you can do that Monday through Friday from 9 to 5. We do have staff here during that time. So if you have questions, feel free to give the store a call, send us an email, Facebook message, whichever you prefer, and all that great stuff. So today's topic is printing in the digital age. And as Veronica was just talking about, that is kind of a challenging thing to maybe talk about in the virtual world because we think of prints as being very tactile and it's an in-person experience. But to me, now more than ever, having these prints and these historic moments is really an important thing. So what I'd like to do is introduce Veronica Cotter and Dennis Keeley. Veronica works with Hahnemühle, if I'm saying that close to right. My German accent is terrible. And if you've been to any of our events in the store over the past few years and longer, you've probably met Veronica and you've maybe even met Dennis as well. I love both of these guys. They're fantastic, fantastic people in the photo industry. Dennis is a fantastic photographer. He's also an educator, and I'm really excited to be able to spend some screen time with you guys today and talk about this topic that I know all three of us are super passionate about. So with that said, I'm going to kick it over to Veronica and Dennis. And this is a conversation, this is a discussion. If you have questions, please feel free to ask those in the chat room. That chat room is going to be available for any of your questions that way. Throughout the session, I'll be reviewing that chat room and sharing your questions with Veronica and Dennis as we kind of move through this discussion. Everyone's video will probably be disabled and your mics are muted for right now. So again, the mics muted helps us keep the ambient noise to a minimum. So go ahead and Veronica and Dennis, I'll let you take the lead from here.
Great, thanks. First, I know we both want to thank Kate, Rebecca, Devin, everyone at Glazer's. They've been a part of my professional life for, oh gosh, more than 20 years. And I truly encourage everyone to support them. They're a great community resource. So thanks to Kate, when she brought this idea up, I said, yes, anything I can do to help, anything I can do to be involved, count me in, and I volunteered Dennis as well. You know, some of you I've met over the years, and for those that I haven't, just kind of a brief overview of my background. I've been in the photo industry almost 40 years. 30 of those years have been on the analog side, first with Oriental Photo, and more recently with Ilford. I was with Ilford for 17 years. So needless to say, analog, black and white, near and dear to my heart. For the last 7+ years, I have been with Hahnemühle USA. And the thing that they all have in common, it has always been about printing, and it's always been about paper choice. So I have been fortunate to carry those conversations and those priorities from one company to the next. And actually, before I turn it over to Dennis, I will tell you that Dennis and I met at a camera store 30 years ago or so. And at the time I was working for Oriental, and the joke at the time was our prenup indicated that he could only use Oriental New Seagull paper. When I went to Ilford, we had to scratch that out, update the prenup. So now that we've transitioned to digital, there's an addendum to the prenup. So it's all Hahnemühle all the time.
And like everybody else today, I'm muted and disabled. So, you know, the topic today about why is print important in a digital age is easy to discuss, because as a photographer, as a writer, as a teacher, we look at the history of photography, and the history of photography is really not about the critical point of it. It's really about the images, and what we have are images over the last 150 years that are strikingly beautiful. And as much as we move to a screen interface, as much as we are online today, and actually my school is online the middle of last term and all summer and probably fall. The conversations that we have about image making and about being a photographer are really about accessing that quality of beauty, that tactile, that sense of that prints are, that images are extracted out of this common existence that we have and are presented in this really remarkable way. And one of the things that we do at Art Center is that we really look at start to finish. We really look at idea and about concept development, about refinement, and about many different finishes, so that the portfolios that my students are making are both online, and also there's a print component which allows them to show people their work in every way possible, in any way that their audience, their clients, their friends can see what it means to be a photographer in this age. When I started at Art Center 15 years ago, we were looking at remarkable black and white and film cameras, and we've moved from, I think, about 10 megapixel cameras to now 100 megapixel cameras. And the printing has changed from just being a black and white print or print made with an RA4 printer to not an either or circumstance, but all of the above. So we're doing alternative process, we're doing inkjet prints, we're doing chromura prints, we're making traditional black and white prints. So this has been a great time to really be advocates for print in general. But I like being here today because Hahnemühle was a company that I actually discovered through Veronica. And at the beginning, I just looked at it as, so there's glossy paper and matte paper. And why do they make all these other papers?
And you know, for anyone that's used any of the Hahnemühle papers, or anyone that's been to the store and you've seen the printed swatch book, there are 30 plus papers in the fine art category. And as we begin to look and talk a little bit more about paper, there are subtleties that really do make a difference. But before we go there, I just want to spend a couple minutes and give you a really condensed overview of Hahnemühle. We recently celebrated our 436th anniversary of continuously making paper. We started originally with mold-made writing paper, moved into papers for traditional fine art, and centuries later, in the late 90s, they started to take some of those fine art papers and coat them for digital. So Hahnemühle was really the first company to do fine art digital papers. We do paper for scientific applications, and some of the things that in the past few years I've learned about the company, and it makes me even prouder to work for Hahnemühle. The mill sits adjacent to a forest preserve, and so therefore we take our responsibility for the environment very seriously. The mill also sits next to a stream. They use that stream water in the production of paper. When the water goes back to the stream, it's drinking water quality. We use the highest quality products to make our papers. And also, since we're in the age of shelter in place and COVID-19, Hahnemühle has been listed recently as a mission critical production facility because we provide agents and substrates for COVID-19 cartridge-based test systems. So that, as I said, is a really condensed version. And Dennis, I think, was alluding to his visit to the mill several years ago with students. And I think once you see how paper is made, the oversight, we have adjacent to the mill is our R&D department, and that's where Dr. Bourne and her team, they develop the coatings, they do oversight, they do quality control. So anyone that's used the papers for any period of time, you probably noticed the consistency from one batch to the next. So it's part of that legacy and part of the big story about Hahnemühle.
I think one of the things that my students saw when we visited the mill was how much craft goes into making paper. And I don't know how you could ever have everybody have this experience, but in printing, in being a photographer, really being aligned with people working in such a remarkable circumstance, making this miraculous product, and seeing the specificities that go into it. These people would tear these huge hunks of paper off the roll and then put them under this glass and then throw it on the floor and start over. The kind of family atmosphere that paper is made in is pretty remarkable. My students will never forget it. I will never forget it. I think the weirdest question I asked when we were at the mill is, I said, so, this is 436 years. You must have the first piece of paper that you made. He said, no, we used it. So I went, oh, that makes sense.
So I had the opportunity soon after I started for a mill tour myself, and there was so much about it that was fascinating, but a few of the highlights for me. So if you have ever looked online or in our catalog, you'll notice that we sell deckled edge paper. And that particular coating alley, the paper comes off deckled on two sides. And there is a woman in the mill who, when I was there, she popped in her earbuds and she had the deckling tool and she was manually deckling the other two sides of the paper. And she had the kind of arms that probably made her a world-class arm wrestler. So I was impressed by that. The other thing is, as you look at the descriptions of our papers, and the way paper was originally made was using a mold, M-O-U-L-D. Oh yeah, so Dennis has brought out some decoupage paper. It's kind of hard to see we refer to it as torn edge as well.
Yeah.
And it looks great when it's in a float frame.
I think it comes across pretty well. I can see it.
I think so too.
Yeah. And I was just talking about paper was originally mold made, where it was a screen with a wooden frame, and you dip it in the vat of paper pulp. They've actually adapted one of our coating machines so that it replicates that mold made look, where the bottom of the coater has what looks like a woolen blanket. And that's called a felt, and it's the texture of that felt that gives the paper its texture. So anyone that's familiar with the William Turner paper, which is extremely textured, that is a mold-made paper. So it's an interesting combination of original process updated for more modern production standards.
So what I found originally was this range of expression, this paper that replicates the surfaces of a black and white silver image, a high gloss, and then an air dried gloss, and then a matte paper, and then in between those two extremes, you have these textured papers that in original black and white technology, a matte paper you might perceive that as being less sharp. And what I found in the technology was that sometimes the textured papers are actually appear to be sharper. I think there's a depth in these surfaces that draw people in. So as much as we think that this is a digital age or a technical age, the most interesting part of this is that these images, when we put them on new papers, really draw audiences in. So in translating your idea into a real state, these papers become a great advantage, become a great sense of care that you've put into the manufacture, the making of your images.
And I just saw a question pop up. Did I not call it William Turner?
You did. I answered it.
You did.
Oh, got it. Okay, got it. Sorry.
I'm even dropping a link.
Did I have a brain fade? Oh my God.
One of the things that we wanted to talk about today, and we will get there, is that it's the usage of these papers. It's not just the paper itself or the genius of your images. It's really, how do we use paper to be present in our world? How do we tell people, here's a picture I made? And Veronica tells a story that I can say that we all have experienced. When people show us their pictures on their phone, they're doing this, and I don't know how fast to go. I don't know how many there will be, but I like looking at pictures in a container, in some sense of how the pace will go, how many pictures there will be, what story is there, what narrative is there in making this work.
And we're kind of we're starting to talk about attributes of paper, and I think maybe before we get much further into that, I'd like to do a quick review of the fine art papers, and it's really hard to. Normally, if we were sitting in the room where Kate is, I'd be holding up a larger version of this. You'd have this version so that you could feel the papers. We went from one to the next, but the fine art papers break down into 5 ranges. So there's the relatively new natural line, and the natural line consists of bamboo, agave, and hemp. They're all made from sustainably sourced fibers. They recently won the Tippett Award for Best Inkjet Paper. They all have varying degrees of a warmer base tint. Of the 3, the bamboo has the warmest base tint. Of the 3, the agave has the most texture. It's subtle, but it's there. They're lovely papers. As I like to mention to people, warmer tone papers tend to be really good for skin tones. It's flattering, but I have seen a variety of images, landscapes, product, etc., on warmer tone papers as well. So don't pigeonhole it at just for portraits. And I know that Glazer's has it in stock.
Yes. Yeah. And we got the sample packs. I'm excited about the sample pack because that means I get to test it out too. So.
And you can drive up and get it, right?
Yes. Curbside pickup available.
Cool. So then from there,
well, since we're talking about it real quick, we do have a promo code available. So hang on.
Yes, that's right.
We got an offer for all of you guys. So
yes. Thank you. I meant to say that on the outset. Then from there, we go to the matte fine art smooth papers. And just know, I'm going to hold this up here for once. If you were to say, oh, Veronica, I love your matte fine art smooth paper. So that's the range. What I need to know, if we're going to talk about a specific paper, within that range, what paper are we talking about? There is the rice paper, which is the thinnest paper in that range at 100 GSM. It is, it's an extremely robust paper. We recently created window shades for our mud porch because the windows are so narrow. To have custom shades made, it would have been way too expensive. So Dennis printed an image, we trimmed them down, and with some decorative push pins, put them up on the side windows. I know people that are doing fan folded projects. I met a photographer that's doing scrolls where she'll print an image, fold it, crease it, stitch it, and then stick the wooden dowels in top and bottom. So I give you all these examples just to underscore the fact that it's thin, but it's not delicate. Next is now photo rag. Anytime you see photo rag in the name of any of our papers, it means it's 100% cotton. Photo rag in the Matte Fine Art Smooth range comes in 3 weights. There's the 188, the 308, which is the most popular, and then the 500, which is almost like printing on a mat board. So those are the 3 weights in the photo rag. The next paper, and I'm doing this kind of as they come according to weight, is the book and album. So we have 2 double-sided papers, book and album, and then photo rag duo. The difference between the 2 of them, book and album is a grain specific paper, so the grain of the paper goes into the binding of the book, and it really cuts down or eliminates the potential for cracking. Photo rag ultra smooth it's very similar to the photo rag, it's velvety. I've seen some stunning portraits on the photo rag ultra smooth. And then finally the bright white, and it truly is the whitest paper in that range. It does have OBAs, optical brightening agents, which makes it a whiter paper. And I will get this out of the way now. You can agree or disagree with me. After talking to our tech applications specialist, and it makes sense to me, my understanding is that, so at some point, 60 years, 80 years, 100 years, it really depends how the print is displayed and stored. The optical brightening agents will begin to fade from the paper. So what happens, it goes back to the natural base tint. It has no impact on longevity. And could you even tell? Most likely not, unless you had an original print that you kept in dark storage, and then maybe at that point in time you did a side-by-side comparison, but it does not affect longevity.
I just want these prints to last longer than I do.
Yes, so, and with pigment inks, we're saying that our fine art papers are rated at 100 years plus. Then the next range, and all our papers are available in cut sheets, standard 8.5 by 11 up to 17 by 22, rolls from 17 up to 44 inch, and some of our papers are actually available in 60 and 64 inch. And some of our papers, and we'll get to that a little later, are available in 4 by 6 and A5, which is very close to
5 by 7.
6 by 8.
6 by 8.
Yeah, you knew that. So
I just look at it as A5.
Yeah. The next range is the still matte fine art, and still, but now textured. And this is probably one of the ranges that people shy away from, because to Dennis's earlier point, you might think that texture would soften the image, but actually it has the exact opposite effect. There's something about the texture that gives the image another depth or dimension. William Turner, which when you show people that paper, and when I go through the swatch book with the William Turner, people will look at it and I'll tell them, no, you gotta touch this one. And more often than not, they'll say, well, it feels like sandpaper. But when you see the amount of detail, how vividly it reproduces color, it really demonstrates how texture affects the image. And this is one of the papers that comes in a Decoupage version. One of my absolute favorites, William Turner has long been, I guess, my all-time favorite, but once again, it's hard to see, but torsion. What I love about torsion, it has this really kind of exaggerated texture to it. And what that does, it creates a beautiful border for the image. So a lot of times when people print, they'll leave enough of the paper showing so that when they mat it, you still have some of that beautiful texture providing a border for the image. So that's the torsion.
Let's talk a bit about printing color or black and white on these papers.
Good point. You know, that's one of the many great things about digital. And trust me, as I told you, 30 years of my DNA is analog, and I will always love analog, and the feel and look of a fiber-based print is remarkable. Anyway, the great thing about digital, these papers, if I show you something in here that's color, just know that black and white looks just as good. They're not either or papers. They're not specifically designed for color or black and white. You can print both.
So if you see this book in the store, you might think that the example they're showing you is a black and white print, and that looks good as a black and white example of your work. The way that you really are going to make use of this is that you're going to try a lot of different things. You're going to try color on a matte paper. You're going to try a black and white, what you think would be a traditional black and white looking image on something that people have never seen before.
Well, and that's one of the other great things, and we'll get to the range that I refer to as photorealistic. So if you're trying to replicate a sea print or a darkroom print, there are definitely some go-to papers. But, you know, in talking to people that have been doing this and started in the darkroom, that's certainly an option for them. But one of the other things they really are having fun with is taking those images and reinterpreting them with different papers. And that is what digital can do for you. And just to finish up with the textured range, and then we'll get into the photorealistic range, there's German etching and museum etching. And what you see with all these papers, it's a different weave pattern, varying degrees of texture, and base tint. And that goes back to the matte fine art smooth. Some I would describe as a neutral base tint. Some are warmer, like your natural papers. And some are cooler, like the Photorag Bright White. And the same characteristics are in each range of paper. Okay, so now we're going to go to quickly it's the Glossy Fine Art range. I must tell you that not all the papers are glossy. When I had this chat with somebody at the mill and said, Pearl is not glossy. And they said to me, compared to everything else in this book, the textured papers, the matte smooth papers, these by comparison are glossy. So I get his point of view, and I guess I'll say we agree to disagree. There's the Fine Art Pearl, a very wide color gamut. There's the Fine Art Baryta Satin, which is a slightly warmer paper. Once again, lovely for skin tones, but I've seen product shots, landscapes, you name it, I've seen it. There is the Photorag Satin, which is a very, very interesting paper. And as you look through the swatch book, if you go to the store, it's also known as the BB King paper. And this is the only paper in this range that doesn't take a glossy ink. It takes the matte black ink. So where the ink goes down, you have a little bit of a sheen, not a shine. Where there's no ink, it's more of a matte characteristic. So it's kind of like 2 in 1. The next paper is the Photorag Baryta, and that, along with the Fine Art Baryta Satin, is one of the papers I recommend if someone's trying to replicate a silver gelatin print. As you look at the description of the paper, I disagree with 2 of the things here. It says that it's a high gloss paper, and it also refers to it as being cool tone. In my opinion, it's more of an air-dried gloss, and it's more of a neutral tone versus cooler tone. That's just me. Photo Rag Pearl. Once again, it's photo rag, so it's 100% cotton, slightly warmer paper, 320 GSM, so it's got a nice heft to it. Fine Art Baryta is another one that I recommend for the look of a darkroom print. The difference between Fine Art Baryta and Photo Rag Baryta, it has a little more texture and a little more gloss and is slightly cooler. And then the next paper is the Photo Rag Metallic, which we introduced just about a year ago. And that you really can't see if I hold up any of the print samples. It's an extraordinary paper. It's truly unique. It is the only fine art metallic paper. It's a 340 GSM, so it has a great heft to it. It reproduces black and white and color spectacularly. And I think I said this, it is the only fine art metallic paper. And then finally, there's the Baryta FB, which is the heaviest at 350, the coolest base tint, and has the most gloss. So those are all the papers. Also within fine art, we have canvas. There's a slightly glossy canvas, which is Goya. There's a metallic canvas. There is a 100% cotton canvas. And then there is the art canvas smooth, which is a warmer. And actually, go ahead.
There will be a test at the end of this.
Yeah, that's right.
So,
yeah, that's right. That's right.
Well, let me ask a couple of quick questions that have come in so far. So Brad is asking Dennis specifically about a print, I guess you did, of Sarah McLachlan, what paper you used and why did you use that paper?
Well, originally, so that image was made with a 4x5 pinhole camera.
Oh, wow.
With Kodak high-speed infrared film. So Sarah wanted to, we needed to make her picture, but we only made about 6 images in about 4 hours. She had to hold still for almost a minute. We built a little support for her the way photography used to work, and had to yell at her a number of times because she would breathe in the middle. So then we'd start all over again.
Oh no!
So I originally printed this on what was the paper of the time, which was the Oriental portrait paper,
which was a beautiful warm tone paper.
Yeah, it's a beautiful paper. So I had a number of these in my portfolio, and this is a good topic because in the last few months, as we've been sheltering at home, I've built a little rig in my office where I'm actually copying negatives into digital files.
Nice.
So I'm at my Canon camera to make raw files out of my traditional negatives, and then printing them. So I'm making a number of these things that were printed traditionally now as digital. They're really faithful to the original. One of the things that you see behind me here is I used to do a lot of hand coloring work, and I'm able to really replicate or really duplicate some of that laborious work. I would spend weeks on this stuff. This is a picture I made of Neil Young, and this is on the photo rag, and it really feels like that original Agfa 118. It's really faithful to those originals. So I'm actually able to stay in this day and age and make work that feels like the originals.
Right. Well, and to answer Brad's question, if I'm not mistaken, it's the PhotoRag 308 that Dennis most often prints that Sarah McLaughlin image on.
You know, it's funny. I have been printing for 30 years. I have a darkroom.
We still have a darkroom.
It's still a system, a way that I engage my work, in that it's either a glossy print or I start with either a glossy print or a matte print. And the PhotoRag is really my go-to paper. So when I make work, and I'm still making work, it's funny. I'm the chair of the photo department at Art Center College of Design. But and people ask often, do I still make work? Do I still make art? I probably make more work today than I've ever made. And
it's easier now with our digital cameras, right? Because
actually, all cameras. The camera is really just a device. It's really, it's like a toaster. You put the right bread in, you set it correctly, and you get good toast. You put the wrong bread in, you burn it, or you don't cook it long enough. It doesn't work. But the great thing about photography is that we use these devices, that we use them appropriately. We use them in some respects as experts, professionals, and I'm going to say, if you're on this chat, your expectations of yourself are higher. So you just know that professionals make everything look easy. That's the job. The job is how did you do that? And the trick is, that's the trick. The trick is, can I take my thumb off? No. But I can make it look like I do. The photography is a remarkable profession in that wherever that entry point is, you're going to use these same materials that everybody uses. And I would tell you that you should start by using the most excellent materials, because that shows you the gap between what you know how to do and what you know these materials do. So you use the best materials you can find.
And that's a good segue to what I always recommend, because this can be pretty overwhelming, and there are subtle differences. As I said, base tint, texture, weight, gloss. Probably more than that. Aesthetically, how does it look under the light, etc. I always recommend, so each range that we looked at, there's a corresponding sample pack. So this is the Glossy Fine Art sample pack. This is the smooth. There's one for textured, and there's now one for the new natural line with the agave, hemp, and bamboo. They come in two sizes, 8.5 by 11 and 13
Giant
by 19.
Size.
Yeah, and I think people now that have purchased the Canon Pro 1000 or the Epson 17-inch printer, you want to look at your test prints at a larger size.
So the greatest thing about these sample packs,
Yes.
better than any other sample packs I have ever seen,
Yep.
is that they print the name of the paper on the back.
Which I assumed every sample pack from every other company
Nobody
did.
does it.
So you don't have to wonder about, how did it come out of the package?
You also know which side to print on.
Yes, but that's in the sample pack,
Yep.
which leads me to, it's not really an issue with the glossier papers, but with the matte papers, every once in a while your paper gets cattywampus. If you're working kind of with multiple papers on the project, can you hand me that pink Post-it note?
Yes.
The old way that I used to check if it was print side up was to, and the tackier side was the print side. And a few years ago, someone showed this to me, and it's just cleaner. So the tackier side is the print, is the emulsion side, the coated side, the print side. You see, it's not as tacky. So that's an easy way to figure out which side is your the printing side.
So show them what we're making.
Well, and let me just ask a real quick question. it was good that you mentioned the sample packs, because I'm pretty sure that's going to be the answer to his question. But, you know, there are so many options. Is there a sample pack that someone who's just getting started you would recommend first, of those that you even showed?
Okay, yeah. Here's how I respond to that question. Probably the Matte Fine Art Smooth. If you come from a darkroom background and you are looking to replicate some of your negs and have a silver gelatin look, then start with the glossy. But the Glossy Fine Art, I always encourage people, though, at some point to try the textured paper, because it's usually a step outside your comfort zone, and it usually has a result that you weren't quite expecting but quite like. And some people have shifted a lot of what they do to textured papers just because of that there's a little something about an image printed on a textured paper that kind of draws you in, that, you know, you kind of want to keep immersing yourself into that image.
But I would always begin with the most neutral paper, and the photo rag really is a paper I know really well.
Yeah, and that is the #1 selling paper across all brands worldwide. So you can never go wrong with Photo Rag 308.
So if I look at my image on the photo rag, I can see what the image does, and if the paper is the mismatch, then I'm perfectly willing to try a glossy paper or a textured paper. But most of the time, I'm going to look at it on the photo rag and start to look at the image itself and see what I've done, what I wanted to do.
Great to see you, Stuart.
Great to see you, Stuart.
Yeah,
Well, and I, you know, I'll just, the photo rag, you know, I love these little photo tens. So the photo rag 308 that you're talking about, that's one of my favorite papers and my go-to. So
well, and we'll show you in just a second. There's something I want to read that'll kick off kind of this next section. And this was in the New York Times in December of 2018. And the article was written by Rebecca Carroll, and the title is "What I See, Gloria Steinem Shoulder to Shoulder with Women of Color." Great article, great images. But one of the lines that stood out that I have carried with me since December 10th of 2018, one of the things we have lost in the digital era, and we have lost a lot, is a tributary medium of sorts, the tangible practice of holding an image in our hands that maps an emotional bayou of truth. Still photographs capture the private determination and personal integrity of their subjects in a way that, upon revisiting, makes selfies and iPhone pictures feel fleeting, contrived, and manufactured. Having said that, I do a lot with my phone when I go out for a walk at the end of the day to clear my head. But I just thought that was a powerful thought. And as Dennis said, he's been printing a lot more. And, you know, we've all had to get a little more creative since we're spending more time at home. And something that we just launched recently using one of my absolute favorite products is the 4x6 paper. So 7 of our papers come in the 4x6 size. There are 30 sheets of a particular paper that come in this tin, and they all have rounded corners. So once again, anyone that I've talked to over the years, you know, I've shown you all the things you can do with these cards. You can create postcards. I actually had someone send me a postcard, and it came through the mail quite nicely. I met a photographer last year that now is using them as his promo cards. I know some of Dennis's students at school use them as promo cards. We used them as holiday cards a few years ago. I'm making my own birthday cards, and then I go to Paper Source and buy envelopes. I make note cards as well. Dennis and I both started scanning our old Polaroids. And it was especially nice to have this photograph on Sunday. For Mother's Day, I posted it, and it was a nice reminder of my mom, who's not been around for way too long. You can print borderless. That's certainly an option. Dennis and I both tend to like printing with a border, but we wanted a way to kind of bridge the distance and connect with our friends and photo community. So last week we launched what we refer to as the San Pedro, or as the locals here call it, Pedro, the San Pedro Postcard Project. So we, both of us on our Facebook pages offered if someone would send us their address
by private message,
that we would send them a postcard. So here's an example image, and then on the back we've downloaded a postcard template, and I've just put a stamp on it. At some point we'll address them, write a personal note, and send them off. So that's one thing that we're doing. And also, it's a way to support the post office. You know, the post office is struggling. I think some of their business recently is down. So it's a nice way for us to also support the post office.
And around the corner from our house is the only all-volunteer post office in America.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. So we're looking forward to taking our stack of postcards over to the ladies around the corner and showing them how we're doing our part to support the Postal Service.
You know, some of the other things that came about with these tins is that I had an opportunity to have a show 3 years ago now. And I had a body of work that I was working on, but I wasn't really ready to show it. But I had this tin of cards of musicians. And when the gallery looked at these, they wanted to know if I wanted to show these. And so I had a really great show. It reminded me of 15 years of work that I did that I had really relegated to my past. The great thing about these tins, that the 4x6s and the A5 work, is that it's not authorized. So Veronica can't tell you about this, but you can print on both sides. So one side is the coated side, and the other side actually you can type on this quite nicely.
Mm-hmm. There's enough texture or tooth in the paper. You know, as I showed you, we just downloaded a postcard template, and Dennis prints the image side first, kind of like painting a bridge. I think he prints all the images and then flips it and prints the postcard template.
So this is my favorite one because it actually, I took the this part of it here off the old Kodak postcards.
Oh, nice.
So I'm resurrecting the stuff. I still have some old Kodak postcard paper. You know, the thing about these tins is that I was able to make this work and sequence it, and then give this to friends in the tin, and have them resequence the work the way they see it, and it created a great dialogue about the pace of the work. And it was interesting to see how people see the work, see which things go first, which things go last, and how it goes in the middle. I see there was a question about the chat. I think it was about printers.
Yeah, and what I tell people is that we're printer agnostic. Our paper works really well in, and thank you for that question. Our papers work really well in Canon, Epson, HP. We have a good working relationship with Canon and Epson. When they're, before they launch a new printer, they send one to Travis McConaughey, our tech support specialist, so that he and his counterpart in Germany can create the profiles. So literally, as they launch a printer, you can go to our website and download the profiles. And I personally think our profiles are really pretty spot on.
I agree with that.
Thing to do, yeah. That definitely, you want to download the paper profile for any of these different papers before you print on them, just to get the most bang for your buck. And
yeah, it really optimizes the output.
Yeah.
And I've owned Epson printers and I've owned Canon printers. They are different, but I like paper. Find a paper, find a printer, and work with it for a while and see what it does, see what it doesn't do. See if you can discern something that you wanted to do. It's mostly about making it work for you. I would say that I would never make a print without using a profile. That's a starting place, no matter what printer you use.
And I know that we're kind of getting toward the end. I just want to share one other quick project that you might want to consider with your photo friends in the area. And we want to leave enough time for questions. But we have a friend that lives on the other side of town, and about every other week, he and Dennis make each other aware that this is coming. So we call it the Porch Project.
Yeah.
Where Mark drops off so now this is the A5 tin, and he has a series of images, and then he picks up one of Dennis's images. So then they wait about a week, and then they get together on a Zoom call and they do this crit.
We do a crit. We look at each other's work. We talk about it. We talk about what we think what's the first impression, what's it trying to do. It's very much about a critique that we've established at school, about encouraging people to make the work of their time. And this has been something in terms of sheltering at home. In one of our classes at school this coming term, our lab will be taking digital files, making prints. We'll be mailing a set to the student, and we'll be mailing another set to the teacher, so we can have a discussion about the work itself.
And before I forget, and I would love to open it up to questions, what I like about this is that it's all about the paper. I've had experiences where people will look at a particular, William Turner in particular, that it's always a striking image, and they'll say, oh my God, that's the paper. Well, they're really being influenced by the image more than the paper, and conversely, someone may flip past a paper because they just don't like the image. So this is all about the paper, and what some people do, which I think is really quite clever, is they unscrew it. It's just a screw post. They unscrew it, lay them all out, and begin to look at papers, once again, in the context of base tint, texture, weight, etc. So I think the store has some of these in that drawer over by the inks, as I recall.
Evan, do we still have a stockpile of those?
But if you don't have the current version, Kate, with the new natural line papers,
we might not have it.
And if you don't, and anyone is interested in getting one, if you send me an email,
which I'm going to put in the chat room. So just so you guys know, I'm putting Veronica's email in the chat room right now. And someone in the chat room asked about downloading Icc Profiles. Mm-hmm. So if you scroll up in the chat room a little bit, I put the link to where you can find the information, not just downloading the file, but how to install them. That information is also on Hahnemühle's website. So, and
also with Kate posting my my email address, I encourage you, if you have questions, never hesitate. If you want to show me what you're working on, as I've told people over the years, the perks of my job are the people I meet, like Kate, and the work that I get to see. So don't hesitate. If you're having any issues, if you kind of hit a stumbling block with downloading or installing profiles, if I can't help you, I'll connect you with Travis.
Or me.
Or Dennis. So, okay, we've talked a lot. We've gone over a lot of things.
I'll throw out a couple of questions. I'm scrolling back up to just get a couple of questions. Brenda was asking about the tins. Is the etching paper still available in the tins?
Museum etching, yes. There are 7 papers. Let's see how good my memory is. Okay. So it's PhotoRag 308, the PhotoRag Ultra Smooth, the Fine Art Baryta Satin, PhotoRag Baryta, Museum etching. Did I hit 7? Here, I've got a cheat sheet. Wait, I have a cheat sheet. Yes, Photoreg 308, Museum etching, Fine Art Pearl, I forgot, Photoreg Baryta, Photoreg Ultra Smooth, Fine Art Baryta, and Fine Art Baryta Satin. In the A5 size, you have 3 choices, the Photoreg 308, the Fine Art Pearl, and the Photoreg Baryta.
Okay, great. I know you guys said you were printer agnostic, but I'm going to ask this anyway. And I know what your preference is, but I'm asking for the world. So someone is looking at the Pro 10 as a potential purchase from Canon. Between the Pro 10, the Pro 100, Pro 1000, what's your go-to printer? If the budget was not an issue and you had a choice, what would you go for?
Well, I get money back from Canon, so no, I don't.
We here at home have the Pro 1000 and we love it. What we like about it, it has the 80 milliliter tanks.
It's really quiet.
It's quiet. We're not replacing ink as often. In talking to one of the Canon tech reps, your price per picoliter or milliliter is significantly lower. I think if you're looking at an 8.5 by 11, it's a 40% difference in price, say the Pro 10 versus the Pro 1000. The Pro 10 versus the Pro 100, if that's really, and I absolutely respect
space
and budgets too.
Well, that's what I'm asking, yeah.
Yeah, I would go with the 10 because the 100 is a dye-based printer and you'll have greater longevity with pigment. As I said, with our fine art papers and pigment inks, you're looking at 100 years plus.
And pigment is a way to grow. If you're going to make prints at all, you're going to want to stick with pigment printers. We have both Epson and Canon at school. We are printer agnostic there. Both make a beautiful print. It's really about the work.
Well, yeah, because there's fine tuning with the Icc Profiles and your edit and that kind of thing, because the print will look different than you expect it to as you fine tune those things.
Well, and the other thing I just want to make, the other thing I want to point out quickly is, so the Pro 10 and the Pro 100 are 13-inch printers. The 1000 is a 17-inch printer. And I think what a lot of photographers do, and Dennis's point in case, is that for most of what he does is 17 by 22 works just fine. If he's in a show, the one he referenced recently, then he works at the lab to do his larger prints. And it's a great relationship. The person that used to process Dennis's film and do his fiber prints is now doing his digital prints.
Even as this goes, probably over 50% of our house is dedicated to work, and putting in a larger printer in my office it crowds me.
Right.
Yeah, if we could kind of twirl the computer around, there really is no wall space. We've got stuff
everywhere.
We put little prints on top of bigger prints. We've got that chair rail back there so that we can switch images out. We're just literally between books and images.
And then there's books.
Oh yeah, we won't get started on the books. Okay. Okay.
Well, let's ask a couple more questions, and then unfortunately we'll have to wrap this up. One person was mentioning they were having some issues with the 4x6 paper in the Pro 1000. Are there any tricks that you have that you could offer to help with that?
One thing while Dennis is pulling it out, if you ever encounter where you get a little head strike up in the corner that leaves some ink.
That's what it does.
Yeah. Paper is not that fragile. So because it's an organic material, it may be affected by the humidity and bow a little bit. Just, kind of.
Just trying to tweak it. And I don't put a lot of paper in there. So I'm printing 5 sheets at a time at the most.
Because the paper is a little bit thicker.
Yeah.
Going with like the paper 10s, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that makes sense. Whenever I do that here, I tend to do 1 or 2 sheets at a time because sometimes that's just easier. So.
And seriously, if you have questions about those, anything else, don't hesitate. Actually, I probably shouldn't say this, but a number of months ago, we literally, Dennis and I were in the office on the phone and we walked somebody through printing a 4x6.
Yes.
I help when I can, and when I kind of hit my limit, then I get our tech specialist involved.
So here's something off the record, but I have not.
Going on the internet. There's no off the record.
I think it's being recorded.
Easier for me to print the 4x6s on the Canon printer than on the Epson printer.
Yeah, if you have an Epson printer, there are a few more steps involved, but with that Canon printer, you literally push the paper guide over.
It works really simply.
Yeah, but if you have issues,
the guide too tight, because that also creates a problem.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
I personally know this, no matter what printer.
That's the same thing with the collars on your shirt. So.
Well, so one person has requested a tour of your home, but we will do that another day.
You know what? That would be interesting, because literally there is not any space. We've got them propped up against the wall. We have them all over.
In every room.
Yeah, the reason we can't really flip the computer is because we have a light clipped to it, but there's an interesting image over there. And anytime I get together with family on a Zoom call,
they ask about it.
Yeah, it's student work. It's interesting. So I promise, maybe what we'll do is we'll a tour the next time.
Yeah, I love it. Let's do it. So I hate to do this because it's a little bit after 2. There's a couple of things I need to mention before we wrap this up. We do have a promo code put together. So those of you guys who are tuning in, and if you registered, I can send a follow-up email with this information. But I'm about to drop this into the chat room. 15% off any Hahnemühle paper purchase. That would include the sample packs, any of the items. So what I'm going to share in the chat room is the promo code, and it's Hahnemühle20. You will have to type that properly. So copy and paste it, write it down. That promo code is good through May 19th, so a week from today. And I'm also including a link so that you get a search for just all the different Hahnemühle paper that the store carries. There's 5 pages of it on our website. So I just put that in the chat room, and I will send a quick note to follow up from this event on Eventbrite, via Eventbrite rather, with that information and links. So if you've been inspired to buy some paper today, this will be a great opportunity to maybe pick up a sample pack or 2, or one of these awesome little photo tens if you're ready to make a mini portfolio, or create some postcards that you could send out to your friends and family during this time. So I just want to take a moment to thank Dennis and Veronica for the tips on photo paper and kind of talking through as many of the options as we can. We know this is a little bit more challenging because you can't feel it. And that is one of the things about printing your images, is that tactile moment, the experience of the paper. And that's part of why there's so many different options available with Hahnemühle, is that it really gives you something for everybody, something for any need that you might have as a photographer or artist. Oops, I dropped it to one person and not everybody. Hang on, I'm putting that all in the chat room now.
Well, and while Kate's doing that, maybe I'm being presumptuous here, but you know, going forward, even when there's fewer restrictions and we're able to meet in person, it might be nice to do this in between. And if you have some suggestions, please share those with Kate. Yes. I know the tour of the house is on the list, but if there's anything else, Dennis and I, as I said, we met in a camera store and we started talking about photography and going to, I think our first date was the Irving Penn exhibit at the LA County Museum. And we have been talking about photography and photographers and images ever since. And we love to have the conversation with other people as well. So if you've got some ideas, hey, let's keep talking.
Yes.
Absolutely. So thank you again, Veronica and Dennis. We will, like I said, I'll follow up with a note on the Hahnemühle offer. If you do have suggestions, you can reply to that email and feel free to send any comments and suggestions my way. I totally appreciate it. We do have more programs like this happening throughout the end of May. including, I mean, there's something for everybody. We have some video stuff coming up. We have a conversation that we're leading with ASMP and local professionals, including a couple of lawyers. And I know that sounds boring, but if you're a business owner and you are in a position to start getting that going, this is a great time to figure out what you need to do to get your business pushed forward, and also what questions you might have as a freelancer in this time. So go to glazerscamera.com/workshops to see what's coming up on the schedule. Lots of things happening. And just a reminder, we are here for you during this time. You can order online and do curbside pickup Monday through Friday between 9 to 5, or just have it shipped to your home. So thank you.
I would just add one thing, and that's you should be thinking global and supporting local.
Yeah.
Agreed there.
I'm not being corny when I say this. I love Glazers. I have on my jacket, I've got my Glazers pin. I love what they do for the community, and I think we really need to step up and support them as much as we can in any way we can. So
thank you so much. It means a lot. You know, it's a hard time for a lot of people, and you know, this Glazers is celebrating its 85th year this year. Third generation family owned, 85 years, and that's pretty spectacular. So the community has been super supportive. And, you know, we're just taking it day to day and trying to also bring you guys information and inspiration as we continue to shelter in place. So,
and if anybody wants to get in on the San Pedro postcard project,
one guy was already like, yeah, give me her email address.
Find it on Facebook.
No, it's on Facebook. So just look for me on Facebook, and
or me.
Or Dennis, and
we'll send you a postcard.
Yeah, we'll send you a postcard.
Okay, I'm gonna get one. I love that one that you showed. So yeah, I'm gonna message you guys soon about that. So
cool.
I dropped your email in the chat room as well, because I think at least one person was gonna maybe email you about that.
Excellent.
Love doing this. This is the way we are going to connect with each other in this time, and I don't. We have to stay connected to each other.
Yeah, and thanks to everybody too for taking the time to hang out with us for an hour or so.
Yes, it's always good to see you guys. We definitely miss seeing you here in the store. So hopefully the next time we do this, you're going to be here in this classroom, and we're going to actually get to do some prints live and in person. So
yes, that's right. That's right.
Cool. Okay, take care of
yourselves.
Take
care of each other.
That's right.
Have a great day, you guys.
Okay, bye. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day. Be safe.
Bye now.